So to begin with, as usual, I shall be using DaVinci, the app on my iPad, to draw this gazelle or whatever it is. And this gives me an accurate outline because I'd like to concentrate on the watercolors afterwards. So the first few minutes you can see I'm putting in not too much detail, mainly the outline of the animal. The reason I like to use this DaVinci app is your painting's never going to be any good if you haven't got an accurate drawing. Now, whether you can draw or not, I can draw. I used to do portraits and all sorts, but I like to concentrate on the painting, not on getting it right. You can use a grid to size up. Great artists used to use grids. Constable, for instance, was known to use a grid. That is, you put a small grid over your the photo you're doing, and then you enlarge the grid, and you use the lines of the grid to blow up the picture to the size you want. This function you can also use in DaVinci app, but I don't. I use this one. So now I've got the outline, I can start thinking about putting some colour on. So for a change, I don't normally do this way, and I don't know if I'll do it again. I'm going to put the background in first because the background is out of focus, and that brings the animal forwards. So I've put some water on first, on this right and in the middle, and I'm using a mix here of Indian yellow and Sierra. Later on I should be putting some burnt umber in. All natural colours, tipping the board to get the colours to flow, and then just letting the paper do the work basically. So I'm adding some darker bits and letting it just run into the paper. I shall sometimes add some water again because the paper dries out. And I shall try and keep the outline of the animal as accurate as I can because I shall be going over that later on. So I'm putting in some green there. This is an emerald green, but I've toned down with some umber. Never use the greens that are offered neat from the palette. They're much too strong and unnatural. So mix them with a bit of brown or another green. Some people don't use greens at all. They mix blue and a yellow. You get a nice green with ultramarine and cadmium yellow, or sienna makes it a bit more grey. You can experiment till you get the colours you want. So at the reason I'm doing this wet in wet is that you get this very indefinite outline, background colours, a bit like a photo that's out of focus, which is what you do when if you want a sharp focus, you use the depth of field. So in this picture the animal does come strikingly forward. So I'm using wet in wet and letting the colours just run. The danger here, I've fallen into a trap a bit, is staying too long with it. It's best to do it as quick as you can and let the paper dry and then have a look. But anyway, we shall see later on whether I leave it this way. I might take some colour off. But at the moment I'm just putting in some different colours. There's even a bit of crimson I've put in there to give it a sort of autumn feel. So once I've done the back in, I shall start filling in the details. So now I shall start filling in some detail on the face. The nice thing about these animals is the way the colours all flow into each other. So I'm using a fairly wet mix of sienna and letting burnt umber run into it. Trying to work as quick as I can here to get the while it's still wet. Up the top is starting to dry a little. I shall go over that with some neutral tint mixed with burnt umber to give it a darker effect. But first of all, I'm trying to get some colour into the main part, not worrying too much about what ends up where. So I didn't wet the paper first here, I just put these washes on, and now I've got a stronger mix of, as I said, of neutral tint with burnt umber and a little bit of indigo. And this is a very strong mix then, as you can see it started to flow in the on the nose and the head, and I'm using it to fill in the dark parts of the fur of the animal. And I'm put quite a bit of water on with it so that it will flow around and leach out a bit. I'm using a fairly small brush here to put in some details. So once I've got these dark areas in, I can concentrate on getting the balance between darks and lights. So I'll put some very light colour in and into the ears. It's still wet, and I've brushed some small hairs and stuff in. I'm doing some detailed stuff here, not worrying about what's going on down the bottom of the painting or in the back. Whether or not I shall leave it like that, I shall decide at the end. So this is at the moment the fine work, takes a little time, and using a fine brush. Now for the eyes, I put some more indigo in. I wanted the eyes, they're pretty much dark in the picture, they're pretty much very similar to the face colours, it's very dark. But I wanted them to stand out a little, so I mixed a little more indigo to give it a bluish tint for the eyes. And got to be careful to leave the parts of the eyes that are reflecting. And this wonderful creature's got long eyelashes. I'm putting those in. And now it's time to start doing the antlers. Got very strong sunlight coming today, so it's a bit hard to see what's going on at the top here. But these antlers are lovely formed. They've got ridges all the way up, so I'm leaving them white. I shall go over that later on. So I'm using the brush now to take a bit of colour off, to give some lighter areas in the antlers, because it's got the very ridge form, and the light hits. Yeah, I've finished the antlers now. It's time to concern myself a bit with the background and the bottom. I didn't really do the picture I took only had details of the face and shoulders, so I haven't done a lot of detail down the back. Some of the background I'm blending a little bit because it was too irritating. There were too many bits and pieces, so the colour's okay. So I just blend it with clean water and a large brush Then down the bottom I'm working some darker colours as though it's sort of shadows, nothing too detailed. Taking some colour off here to give here a little bit of light there, and then I should put a bit of shadow back underneath. So pretty much finished nearly here. Wet in wet, a bit more dark colour, could be a leg, could be something else. Yeah, pretty much finished. Just really have to sign it and then that will be it. Hope you enjoyed it.